The soldier of the void. Space knows no victories. He only knows leftovers. The unnamed moon rotated slowly, covered in a skin of cold dust and ancient craters. In orbit, the skeletons of dead ships drew a metallic graveyard. On the surface, under a black sky stitched together by shiny shrapnel, a body shook. The cracked visor let in a rough thread of light. The soldier breathed. A low, damp sound stuck in his helmet. He tried to move his hand. Pain. He tried his leg. More pain. The HUD blinked weakly, displaying readings in red. Oxygen, 23%. Armor integrity, 41%. Ammo, 12%. He stood up slowly, as if gravity had doubled in weight. The radio whispered static. The helmet registered names that no longer existed. Allies, disconnected. Command, missing. Objective, unknown. The war had passed through there like an eyeless hurricane. Energy weapons charred soil and steel. Fallen drones lay like legless spiders. Torn flags, human and species he couldn't even name, attached themselves to twisted antennae. He recalled the impact, of the flash that cut the sky, of the vibration that ran through his bones. From the captain's order, retreat to Crater 3, regrouping in 50 seconds. No one made it to Crater 3. His throat scratched when he tried to speak. Here, Alpha 6. Any unity in listening? I repeat, any unit. Static. He looked at the horizon. Nothing moved. Nothing answered. In that silence, there was an all-too-simple truth. The war had left no winners. Only temporary survivors. He collected a piece of metal with the unit's own coat of arms. The symbol still shone in silver despite the soot. As long as I'm standing, it's not over. To say that was like lighting an ember in the darkness, small, stubborn, and insufficient. But an ember is still fire. At the edge of the display, a marker flashed, a weak power signature to the east. He narrowed his eyes. An echo of life. A transmitter. Or a remnant of an enemy trap waiting for curious onlookers. The armor hummed softly, readjusting damaged servants. The soldier turned the gun and checked the cartridge. 12 shots. 12 chances before the void. He took the first step. The layer of dust rose in a pale halo. The helmet recorded the trail as if recording would prevent forgetting. He walked, a vulnerable point under an infinite roof. Space, impassive, watched him. And then, between two sparks of static, the radio said, in a voice that was not of anyone he knew, "You're not alone." The soldier stopped. Every muscle turned to stone. The dust around it seemed to freeze in the air. And the universe, which until then had only ignored, now answers. He raised his gun into nothingness. "Identify yourself," he said. Silence. The HUD traced probable origins. No. The signal had come from all directions and from nowhere, as if the vacuum itself had spoken. He checked the microphone, the receiver, and the frequencies, all operating at the limit. The energy source is also at the limit. The body is also on the edge. In front of him, the plane broke into a field of debris from a frigate. The black hull was open like a belly, exposing shattered corridors, bare cables and modules still smoking. The soldier entered. The smell of ozone and burnt metal went through the filters. The metal floor gave way, panting under his boots. In the main hallway, a log panel. He wiped off the soot with his glove and activated the terminal. The system coughed up an unstable hologram, the ship's map, videos, and logs. He reproduced the most recent. A soldier, human, face painted with soot, eyes burning. "If anyone finds this, don't go back to low orbit. The minefield has been reactivated. It's not theirs. Is of the ship itself. Something has taken over. We are no longer the target. We are the tools." The video cut off, scratched by interference. The soldier advanced through the corridors, attentive to shadows and sounds. He found 2 bodies near the emergency hatch. He kept his gaze just long enough to pay them the silent honor that is paid to the fallen, a lump in his throat. A light flashed inside a side cabin. A technical drone, one of those used for repairs, spun on its own on its axis. It was out of power, but a phantom charging wire made it try to restart and fail again and again. The soldier turned off the cycle. In the hangar, a gap in the hull opened the view to the space. Through it, on the horizon, something shone. Not like a star, lower on the line of crests, like a distant city. Lights. Lots of lights. He climbed a beam and adjusted the zoom of the viewfinder. They were ships, not human. The mothership, like an obsidian disk, was escorted by 5 elongated silhouettes, like blades in the dark. They hovered over the moon without making a noise, just the outlines cutting out nothingness. Watched. Recognition? Blockade? He murmured. No one answered. No one but the moon and breath itself. He returned to the terminal and pulled older logs. Images from before the battle. A star map with crossed-out routes and areas in red. Sector name, Linha 0. Classification, unstable, not to remain. The soldier closed his eyes for 2 seconds. His shoulders slumped. Line 0 was more than a dangerous sector. It was a place where physics behaved as if it was tired of obeying. Gravity anomalies, temporal memory and particles, echoes of signals that arrived before they were sent. He should have died. He had not died. This was not always good news. As he left the frigate, a thin beam of dust cut through the air in front of him, micro-debris passing inches from the visor. The moon's shell moved little, but enough to remind us that there, everything slipped into oblivion. Then the radio called again. No static, no noise, clear as a voice next to the ear. "We are seeing you. Identify yourself," he repeated more harshly. "Unity, kindness, intention." Intention? The voice sounded curious, or imitated curiosity. "Conclude." "Conclude what?" "Pause, you." The soldier raised his gun to the sky. If he ran, he wouldn't get anywhere faster. If he stayed, he would be watched until he went mad. He chose the third option, to go up. The helmet maps indicated an elevation to the northwest, a spine of rock that stood out from the terrain, a rib of the moon. The path there crossed a shallow crater bed, dotted with twisted sheets and drone carcasses. He advanced as if crossing a field of shrapnel in the rain. As it gained height, the lights became clear. They were not just there, they were organized. A perfect semicircle, with precise spacing, as if someone were drawing a siege line from a safe distance. In the center of that semicircle, the sky seemed denser, as if darkness had substance. "Unknown unity, repeating, intention," he insisted. "Observe, measure, regain." "Recover what?" "What was lost." "I'm not a thing." Silence again. A silence that was not empty but calculating. At the top of the elevation, he rested the gun on a rock and activated the sweep mode. The bridge of enemy ships did not emit common signals. The thermal spectrum was too cold. The shields, if there were any, were of a different nature. The gravitational sensor, however, squeaked. Something there folded the space into fragile lines, like hot glass. One lens, one focus. The soldier felt a shiver without heat. "You are not the cutting fleet," he ventured. "They are the cartographers." The answer came with an almost satisfied tone. The cartographers. Rumors in the deepest layers of the briefings, an intelligence that did not colonize, did not negotiate, and did not yearn for territories. It mapped the cracks of reality, and he collected what fell for them. "What was lost on my side of the field?" he asked. "Pieces. Voices. Memories." A short pause. "You." "I was not lost." It was. The voice sounded less like a voice and more like truth. Out of the expected result. He tightened his grip until it hurt. "I'm just a soldier." "Exactly." A breeze of dust rushed across the plateau, a strange phenomenon for a moon without an atmosphere. The soldier reached out instinctively, as if confirming if he was awake. Grains touched the glove and crumbled like ashes. On the horizon, the dense darkness moved a millimeter, not towards him, but into herself, a tug, a tide of nothing. At the same instant, the HUD beeped. Event Horizon Anomaly, weak. You have dug a well, he said quietly, in the middle of the sector. We didn't open it. The next pause had an intake contour. He thought about the soldiers' recording. It's not theirs, of the ship itself. Think fast, think whole. If there was a well of reality, a flaw, and if the cartographers were recovering things lost in it, then the attacked frigate had not been dropped by artillery. It had fallen on the inside. Inside something that consumed cause and effect. Inside an error in the universe. And he, by not dying, was a residue of this error. The radio crackled with another voice, the same one, in another form. We will measure your persistence. I'd rather measure yours, he replied, activating the weapon's precision mode. The lights of the semicircle flashed in sequence, like a huge eye blinking slowly. The soldier felt, for a second, his consciousness being touched by a faceless will. Persistence, he thought, of a soldier, of a story, of a name. My name is Ryan, he said, not knowing why. Name, irrelevant. Function, vector. So take note, Ryan Vector. Descending the western part of the plateau gave access to a rock formation that resembled a jaw. On the maps, a natural shelter. In practice, a shade refrigerator. There, a few meters from the entrance, was an improvised row of markers, blades stuck in the ground, red threads knotted and dark rags in the non-existent wind. The fallen of his company. He approached, each step a request for forgiveness, and lit a flare at the end of a broken marker. Red light bathed the names engraved in the metal. He read them one by one, the ones I remembered, the ones he didn't have time to meet. His fingers touched a coat of arms. A glove closed over a star. The old insignia of the belt resistance. We continue, he said. Inside the shelter, he found a portable terminal, battery at the end, with the message indicator flashing. It's connected to the handle biojack. The interface entered hesitantly. Tactical log, Company 7, Subsector D, reactivation of minefields without command. Hostile recalibration of drones with no detectable origin. Growing horizon anomalies. Collective thinking, how to fight something that doesn't shoot. Another recording, with a trembling voice. If anyone catches this, tell Ryan that it wasn't cowardice. The line gave way. When the moon began to disappear beneath our feet, we just run. And racing was the only right thing to do. He took off his helmet for a moment. The cold, sterile air of the shelter scratched his lungs. He closed his eyes. The image of a woman with her hair tied up, laughing at a stupid joke in the base's cafeteria, cut through her mind like an arrow. The name stuck in his mouth. Sometimes, remembering names was more deadly than forgetting. He put his helmet back on. With the little power in the terminal, he opened a map of the sector. There was an ancient marking. Ghost transmission node, to the east, in the Beyond Regal Valley. The description warned, residual signalman, probable echo of ancient battle. Avoid prolonged exposure. Ryan closed the terminal. Echo of an ancient battle. Echo. Like the voice he had heard. When it reappeared on the outside, the light from the ships on the horizon had increased by a few degrees. It wasn't approximation. It was focus. As if something up there had decided to press a button halfway. Motion detected, said the voice of the cartographers, neutral. Predicted destination, ghost transmission node. If you know, why don't you stop me? He asked, walking down the slope without putting down his gun. We measure persistence, not frivolity. Frivolity? Trying not to go is a waste of resources. Going is less expensive. He bit a curse. They measured the man wrong. Man, vector, persistence, to measure. The Beyond Regium Valley appeared as a broad depression, with polished basalt formations and lines that resembled giant ribs in the rock. The knot was a broken, leaning tower, like a broken tooth. At the tip, a curved antenna, or something like an antenna, crackled silently with small blue discharges that deflected from your fingers. When Ryan approached, The radio, without him playing anything, changed frequency. A synchronized noise appeared, like clapping too far, too fast. And glued to the noise, a voice too familiar to exist there. "Rian." He stopped. "Rian, if you're listening, don't look back. Keep walking, eyes ahead, listening. Line 0 is not a place, it is a body. He is alive, and he's hungry." He acknowledged. It was the voice of Captain Thomas, killed in the first fall. Ryan had been holding her hand when it grew cold. "Captain, if you look back, he will recognize you, and then it will want you whole." Rian closed his eyes. "That's an echo. Oh, this is a recording. It is, and it is not. It is like a dream that has learned to speak. Listen, you are out of the result. You are the mistake that is left. That's what the ships are looking for. That's why emptiness wants you." He opened his eyes. The lights of the semicircle pulsed, as if in agreement. "What do I do? Choose, to be forgotten with honor, or remembered as a mistake." The transmission broke, like ice under the foot. The knot kept snapping, indifferent. Ryan touched the tower column with his gloved fingers. The metal vibrated very low, almost a song that the body heard before the ear. He glued his helmet to the surface. Images emerged, quick, dizzying, of the battle that moon had been the stage for. Lines of fire, screams, names, oaths, flags, orders, and an immense feeling of having been swallowed by a toothless mouth. He walked away, panting. "Persistence. High," said the cartographers. "Watch the hell," he growled, and moved on. The first blast came from the left, silent, a particle sickle that scratched his flank. The armor alert bellowed. He spun on the spot and fell to his knees, already with his sights on the vector of the shot. Nothing there, just rock. Second shot, this time from above. A thin-profile drone, glued to the outline of the crest to blend in with the horizon, fired 2 more shots. Ryan retaliated. The first hit cut the wing, the second, the head. The drone crashed, a downed game piece. "Reaction? Efficient," the voice murmured on the radio as if taking notes. "Persistence. Adaptive. Stay by my side and take the hit," he said, climbing up to take an angle. 2 more appeared, as if the slaughter of the first was a sign. Ryan ran between 2 columns of rock, took advantage of the low weight of gravity for a long jump, and landed in position. The gun sang. Rain of sparks. 1 drone spun out of control, and another tried to lock into the air and failed. 2 dots on the ground. Ammo, 7. 2 heavy drones appeared from behind a basalt bow. These hand-to-hand combat units. Blades embedded in the sides, red sensors like angry eyes. Ryan retreated, calling them into a funnel between 2 tall rocks, forcing them to come one at a time. The first jumped. The impact almost broke his arm. He spun around, punched the main sensor with the butt of the gun, and fired point blank into the center stabilizer. The second came as a blind bull. Ryan slipped and slid under the metal belly, nailing a magnetic grenade and propelling himself backwards. The explosion broke the window that was none. Ammo, 4. He took a quick breath twice, deep in the third. He raised his gun. Sought. The radar pointed to 3 approaching contacts. Smaller drones swarm. They were testing. Persistence, high. Tactics, adjusted. "Keep writing this on the wall of your nest," he grunted. 3 targets to the east. 2 shots. A single compensation movement. 2 fell. The third backed off, too smart for an ordinary drone. Ryan moved forward, trying to shorten it. The ground vibrated, deep vibration, like shaking. He looked inadvertently at the horizon. The dense darkness was stirring. It was not an illusion. The sky in that band folded in on itself like a shrinking fabric, the nearby stars swerving in slow arcs. The HUD shouted, "Warning, curvature gradient." A faint line of brightness appeared on the edge of nowhere, like dawn at the mouth of a hole. The retreating drone took advantage of his distraction. Invested. Ryan felt the approach on the back of his neck and turned around in an automatic gesture. Shooting. Hit. Fall. Ammo. 1. He let go of an expletive, changed the cartridge with hands that insisted on shaking, and put the last one, the end of the line. Ammo. 8. A large shadow cut through the top of the valley. Not drone, not a warship. Something in between, with an organic profile and too much engineering in the bones. Ryan pointed out. He shot twice. The thing has gone astray, as one who contemplates and despises. The shots went through a trail and went to eat dust at the bottom of the valley. New unit, healer class, the cartographer said, almost amused. What are you going to collect? He asked, with the answer in his mouth. You. The thing plunged. Ryan waited until the last second when there was no sound, but the body still realized the intention and rolled to the right, firing a horizontal arc. He hit a junction. Sparks. The healer went upstairs, wounded but not disinterested. Persistence, very high. Now there was a touch of admiration. If you resist capture, we will speed up the event. Speed up and come get me. The thing plunged again, this time releasing small devices that opened up in the air like metal flowers, field nets aimed at immobilizing. Ryan jumped behind a rock, and the net stuck to the granite with a noise of torn flesh. He put the gun over it and fired blindly, drawing a fan. One of the shots found material, metal squeak. The curator howled with a broken brake sound. Ammunition, 3. He knew the math. Another attack from them. 0 margin for error. Another mistake of his. 0 margin for life. Ryan, the voice changed. No more cartographers. The captain, again. They can't take what you don't let go. I don't let go of anything. I'm not talking about the gun. Ryan closed his eyes for half a second. His breath scratched. Tenuous, but clear, the memory came. She was in the cafeteria laughing at the stupid joke. The name threatened to break through. He held it with the strength of someone who holds a precipice by the nails. The healer came, shadow and blade. Ryan didn't back down, he said. He went into diving. He shot not the body, but the trail. The field that surrounded him cracked in a dry flash. The curator, surprised, lost torque and fell on his side. Ryan climbed on the hull, plunged the service knife into the side junction, and fired the last shot into the control core. Silence. Ammo. 0. Persistence. Maximum, said the cartographers. Conclusion. Ready. Conclusion of what? He asked. But he knew. The horizon of darkness breathed. And this time, the cosmos blinked. First, a shudder in gravity. Almost nothing. A tide the size of a sigh. Then the stars on the edge of the field curved a little more. Finally, the sound. It wasn't sound, but the memory of sound, coming through the bone, through the tooth, through the part of the brain that understands thunder before the ears. The darkness gathered in the center, contracted, and then opened the eye. It was not a metaphor like the whispers of the old pilots. It was an eye, no iris, no eyelid, no flesh. A drawing of light and dust whose logic did not obey anatomies. An eye made of distortions. The eye of something that, in order to exist, did not need to exist. Ryan wanted to kneel and didn't want to. The body chose the first option for him. The radio sizzled as if spitting ash. All the frequencies aligned for an instant. All the voices of all the battles of all the dead moons speaking together and saying, in a single sentence that fit in any language, "Don't resist." He tried to laugh. The sound came out like a bone breaking. Not resisting is not surrender. The voice was now manifold, but intelligible. "I'm the mistake," he confirmed. "And I'm the mistake." Calculated persistence. An icy heat touched the back of his mind. "Your job is to close the circuit." "What circuit?" The eye dilated. The HUD went off and lit again, showing, for a moment, not readings, but images. Ryan falling on the moon. Ryan is standing up. Ryan killing drones. Ryan is walking. Ryan, for months, signing the draft. Ryan, for years, entered the technical school of armor. Ryan as a child, in a mining colony, looking at a sky that had no sky. And at the center of it all, an undated point. The moment when his unit understood that line 0 was not a place. It was a body. "You've always been here." The sentence came like a spike in the face, before, during, and after. "Unacceptable," he said, calmly again. "My story is not a map that you fold. It's a line that we align again. Rian smelled ozone in his helmet, even without real air. If you want to get me back, she looked at the ships in the sky, in the semicircle. Why don't you come down and get me? Because you're already above. He blinked. The feeling of being standing and kneeling, lying and running, dead and alive, crossed his spine. The world oscillated, but the body remained. He moved his hand. The hand moved, persisted. Even if I'm the mistake, I'm the standing mistake, he said, and without realizing it, smiled from the side. Persistence. It is defined. The voice finally sounded curious, on the verge of admiration. Close. Fold. Or silence. The kind of silence that precedes an alternative. Or tear it up. The word did not come from cartographers. It came from the captain. Ryan, choose. Tear what? The body. The voice changed again, now echoing from other acquaintances, from other fallen ones, as if it were a small crowd inside the hull. If you choose to tear it up, no one measures. If you choose to double, you disappear, and the war returns tomorrow. The lights in the sky pulsed, impatient. The eye in the center of the edge inflated like a lung. Decide. Ryan looked at the ground. Gray dust. He looked at his hands. Wounds. He looked at the empty gun, heavy and useless. He looked at the rock, at the markers, and at the coat of arms of the glove closed over the star. And finally, he forced his memory to face the name he had been avoiding. He saw her, the woman in the cafeteria, laughing. The name came, simple, clean, deadly. Ayla. The eye trembled like water. The ships in the semicircle adjusted the alignment by 1 degree. Lina Zero didn't like names. Persistence. Anomalous. It's called love, Ryan said, sipping air that wasn't there. And anger. And promise. Walking, at that moment, was the only way to think with my feet. Ryan took the first step toward the edge of the valley and the horizon of ships. With each step, gravity varied by a thread, forcing the body to relearn its own weight. With each step, the eye seemed bigger, not because it got closer, but because everything around it shrank. Last chance. The aligned voice sounded louder. Close the circuit. Surrender. We will return the lines. The war will not be repeated. You measure worlds, he replied without changing his pace. But they don't hold arms. Arms. Expendable. For those who don't hug, yes. The edge of the valley gorge was a clean cut. From there, seeing the ships lined up caused an almost sweet vertigo. Ryan stood on the line, his whole body sore, his whole mind sharp. He extended his right arm, looking at the cracked glove, the scratched metal, and the remains of dried blood. I don't close the circuit, I open it. Condition not foreseen. If line 0 is a body, he pointed to his eye, then it has skin, all skin tears. The ships moved at the same time, as if a single muscle contracted. The eye dilated. The tide of gravity raised an invisible hand. Hostile persistence. The cartographers, now clearly and coldly interested. Curators, prepare containment. 2 new profiles emerged at the top. Larger healers, with field scales visible like bumps in the light. They descended in smooth parabolas, calculated to enclose the human vector in a folding envelope. Ryan bent his knees, as if he could jump up to them and rip out their throats they didn't have. Captain, he said quietly, if you're listening to me, forgive me for what's coming now. Ryan, Tamas's voice came, sweet as steel. He took a breath once, and he screamed. It wasn't a throat scream. It was a scream from every muscle and bone, from every story and every scar. A scream that Ayla said, that said unspoken names, that said no to the map and yes to error. The cry came out on the radio, on the armor, on the ground, on the markers, on the broken drones, on the knot tower, and on the orbital graveyard. And it came out, above all, in the place where there is no sound. In the drawing of gravity. The tide returned. The eye vibrated. The ships hesitated. Ryan took the step, and another, and another. Not backwards, not far away. Straight ahead, straight to the semicircle, straight to the eye, straight to the place that devours. The trustees have closed. Fields opened like transparent mouths. Ryan, out of ammunition, raised both arms and slammed his gloves together, activating the armor's last resort. The wrist discharge that is only used to wake friends in cocoons or kill oneself without pain. But he adjusted the connectors, and it didn't turn to herself. He turned out. The wrist came out as an invisible ring. The rock responded by cracking. The knot in the tower replicated its wrist as if it were a bell. Line 0 received the note and returned it multiplied. Not as harmony, but as sudden dissonance. The skin tore apart. It wasn't an explosion. It was not light. It was a sudden absence of obedience. Reality at that point stopped taking orders. The eye contorted to maintain the drawing and failed. The semicircle of ships retreated, each at a micro distance, like a shoal in front of a larger predator. The healers lost their shape, the fields wobbled, and one of them fell to the surface like a whale without a sea. Ryan fell to his knees again. The helmet screamed and the heart hammered. Part of the world was crooked. He laughed, and the laughter was a sob. Persistence. The cartographer's voice stammered. Unmodeled persistence. It's called freedom. The answer that came was not theirs. It was from voices he knew, and not the echoes of echoes, the recordings they learned to dream. He looked up. Wow. Of those who fell. Of those that were not measured. Of those who insist. The word insist came heatedly. Get out, Ryan. Go to the North Ridge. There is a capsule that they did not see. Go while they calculate what doesn't fit. What about you? We are dead weight and wind. We were left amazed. Will. He stood up as one who lifts a mountain. The legs asked for a truce. He denied it. The northern ridge was not far, but now every meter had false slopes, floors that slipped without slipping, and curves where there were none. Line 0 was angry. Very good. Irritation is a sign of life. Behind him, the ships readjusted the siege. The eye tried to recompose the geometry, but where the skin had torn, there were free edges, fringes of the impossible. On the North Ridge, half buried in dust, a capsule, simple, obsolete, human, the kind of thing that shouldn't work, and maybe it would work for that very reason. He kicked the side, cleaned the entrance, and activated the panel. Green lights lit up like fireflies with fever. Commander Thomas, he said, knowing he would get no answer. I need authorization. The silence took a second. Permission granted, said the voice that was no longer alive, and Ryan smiled twistedly. Entered. The cockpit embraced his body with the hard affection of old machines. The panel flashed and asked for code. He typed in the number he had never forgotten. The day and month Ayla had called him to the cafeteria to laugh at the stupid joke. The engines bubbled. Trustees, containment! The cartographers were back to their coldness. Try it, Ryan said and pulled the throttle. The capsule bounced like fish escaping from a torn net. The low gravity helped. The breach helped more. He pointed the nose of the capsule not far away, but to the middle of the semicircle. The audacity that nullified calculations. The ships spread out more. Invisible shots passed, scraping the skin of the capsule and the skin of reality. Disobedient persistence, someone on the radio whispered, almost respectfully. New registration, he replied. The mistake has escaped. The capsule went through the open fringe as if crossing a badly sewn curtain. For 2 seconds there was no outside or inside, up or down, war or peace. There was just a feeling of falling everywhere and rising nowhere. Then, the world went back to hierarchies. The sky became heaven again. The stars, the HUD numbers. Behind, the semicircle closed the rows. The eye tried to be an eye again. Linha 0, wounded, learned quickly to heal. In front, the common dark of space, the kind of dark that is good for those who still bear names. Ryan breathed slowly like someone drinking water. Center of the cosmos, he said, testing the sound. I'm not done. The radio crackled with one last gift from the valley. The voices of the fallen, in impossible unison, made the capsule a brief church. He smiled. "See you on the other side." The stars, discreet, seemed to agree. The capsule followed. And for a while, the universe didn't measure anything. He only let a fleeing soldier cross out a new line on the map. A crooked, impure, disobedient line, a living line.